Hi guys, today we are with Bulova historian Carl, and Carl will show us some amazing Accutrons. Uh, these watches are so cool. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. As a historian, I tell a lot of stories and love to share them with people. This is very special. We very rarely take this out of the museum, and we're put in the safe and we're bringing it back tomorrow. This happens to be a watch that was owned by Elvis Presley in 1960, and we actually purchased it through Graceland, so we have the whole provenance behind it. And to me, this was very representative of the 60s, the new technology. Elvis loved new things, also loved to be flashy and have sort of a trophy on his wrist. So he liked to wear Accutrons, and we have a record of 3 different watches that he owned. On the case back, it is a great engraved EP for Elvis Presley. Rarely taken out of the museum, but for this event and for you,
Thank you, Carl.
love to share. This one also from the museum. Is an Accutron 218. The other one was a 214, which you have the sort of the hidden crown on the case back. This one is the crown at the 4 o'clock position. This one was for General Omar Bradley. He was the last 5-star general of the United States. He was also the chairman of the board of Bulova from 1958 to 1974. And before that, he was the chairman of Bulova's research and development from 1954 to 1958. Anyway, because of his position stature, and because he was the last 5-star general of the United States, he used to have an Accutron modified to put 5 stars between the center post and the 6 o'clock position. So you can see on the dial here the 5 different stars.
Nice.
Now, Bulova was very involved with NASA and the space program. There were 46 different space missions that had some type of Accutron technology, Bulova technology on it. Not just watches and clocks, but seismometers, altimeters, different types of things. Bulova did a lot of precision instruments besides, watches and clocks. So this one, I think, was given at one of the launches. Haile Selassie, who was the emperor of Ethiopia in the 1960s, loved NASA, loved space. And so by Omar Bradley, this watch was given to him. And this one actually is engraved also with HS on the case back. And I have a whole history of the provenance and the whole story behind Omar Bradley and Haile Selassie. This is an Astronaut watch. This is the T model of the Astronaut. In 1963, in the spring, an astronaut named L. Gordon Cooper went on Mercury Faith 7 into space, and he wore a watch just like this. It was provided to him, and after he went into space, it was then deemed the astronaut watch. And then they put astronaut on the dial, and they kept coming up with different versions. This happens to be the day-night version, the Model T, with you can see the bezels divided into 2 parts for day and night. And this is a GMT. This is original packaging also. I often say, if you have a chance to come to the museum, you could tell the history of the United States through the Bulova packaging. Not only the design, but the technology, whether or not it was injection molded plastic or wrapped or metal finish. Bulova was very big, and when I was I worked for Bulova for 30 years. I was the chief operating officer. I was also president of Bulova Swiss SA, which was the Swiss distribution company based in Fribourg, Switzerland. What I wanted to say is this watch also had a little like a medallion. It was like a little clover leaf shaped thing that would be packaged with it, so you could change the time on the Accutron. This is the battery hatch. So you unscrew this, and then the battery's exposed. You can take the battery out and then replace it. Yeah. So you see how that flips open? And you turn this.
And that's gonna move the hands?
We'll turn the hands.
Very nice.
So this is technically the crown, but most people, when they think of a crown, it's the thing on the side of the case. But in this case, it's a totally different configuration. The man that loaned it to us, actually, for this exhibit, I have the original in the museum, is Darrell Hansen, who wrote a book called The Complete Guide to Bulova Accutron Watches. It's over 500 pages. amazing, amazing, amazing amount of research.
Oh yeah.
Some things I learned, some things after I saw this, I then shared with him, and he is now working on a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
This is available on eBay. Any Accutron collector really should own it. It tells about all the different models from the Tiffany Accutrons to the space programs and the Accutron clocks. A few other pieces. This in 2020, Bulova came out with new technology, the electrostatic movement. But we also came out with a collection to give a nod to the history of Bulova and the nostalgia with a legacy collection.
So this one's a reissue.
This is a reissue.
Okay.
But what we did is we didn't have the tuning fork movements to use, but as that's sort of the nod to the original, we put the crown at the 4 o'clock. So it looks like the 218 movement. This happens to be the Canadian version of the railroad watch from that era, which had not only 24 markers, but instead of having a 12 at the top, it was a 0, which is just sort of a different twist. Bulova was one of the first, maybe the first, electronic watches to wristwatches to be authorized by the railroads to be worn by the crew. This was a lady's Accutron with a mesh bracelet from the 70s. So this was a quartz watch. But there's a very famous ad by Bulova. And Bulova did a lot, I think, for women's empowerment. And in 1974, they came out with a pair of watches. The ad was equal pay, equal time. And so they were trying to say that they, had a whole line of ladies' wristwatches and not just focusing on men. This is a Spaceview, original one, caliber 214. Originally, Bulova did not have an open dial. I mean, it's iconic. It's what people sort of remember now. But it was when the salesman would show the jeweler with a prototype with just an open dial how the technology worked, because it was the first revolution in 300 years of timekeeping. So the retailer said to Bulova, why don't you show it to the consumers with the open dial? And that was the birth of the Spaceview. So the Spaceview was issued in 1961, but the Accutron was October 25th, 1960, was when that was launched. This is an actual sales kit of how the salesman would present the technology, because you had to explain it was a tuning fork, it was electronic, it was a battery, how did this thing work, and with such accuracy. So they would carry this in. This switch actually would cause the top of the tuning fork to vibrate. In the days before PowerPoint, this is how you would have to present. So, and you can see this looks brand new. This is from the 1960s, unretouched, on just how the technology worked, sort of a Q&A. So here is a whole series of Accutrons, mostly Spaceviews. This particular one, not one of the first, this was from 1975. Okay, but I don't know if you can tell. Once I tell you, you can't unsee it. But the case of this is in the shape of a stylized tuning fork. This was issued in 1975 on the 100th anniversary of the company, which was founded in 1875. This watch is a very distinctive case. We call it the Alpha. And it's an alpha because it's like the Greek symbol alpha, which is rounded and comes to a point. So it's asymmetric in design. I mean, it's right to left, it's symmetric, but it's rounded at the top and comes to a point at the bottom. This is also asymmetric. And some people refer to this as sort of a football shape. It's pointed in the two quadrants there and rounded on the other side. So just, something very different. We also have more of a cushiony TV shape with sort of a chapter ring that is somewhat beveled that goes in. In total, there were probably about 5 million Accutron tuning fork watches made. So I hope you learned a little something. It's been fun sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Guys, please put your comments, and if you have questions, I don't know if Carl will answer. I can think. Yeah, thank you so much.
Pleasure.